So let's talk about boiling with the Burtonsville rig and the Morse pot versus boiling with the clean canteen. Both of them need to be boiled, and right now it doesn't look like I have fire, but I've actually got, I can feel heat clear up to here because this is a pile of coals that has been burning for like 12 hours straight from last night. So I'm gonna add a little bit of wood to it. So if we're gonna talk about the differences in cooking with a handled pot and a non-handled pot, one suggestion that I have been given by a friend of mine was to use a rock in the middle of the coals. So that is just hot, hot, hot. And I'm gonna try to make this, use this flat part on here so that I can build a fire up around it. So what you can do for a clean canteen, and you always have to take the lid off because it's plastic, is either you can embed it down in here in the coals and boil it that way, or you can get a good solid rock, put it on the rock and build the fire up around it. Either way, you got to make sure that it comes to a boil. Now, everyone always has some crazy amounts of time for the boil. They say like 1 minute or 15 minutes or all this craziness. The reality of the fact is if you can recognize the difference between a boil, which shakes the bottle, and the beginning of a boil, which is just bubbles coming up, then you'll be all right. Now, when the water is above 158 degrees, all of the water is above 158 degrees, it's clean, it's pasteurized. But it takes about 200 plus degrees, depending on your altitude, for the water to boil. So as long as it's boiling enough that your bottle's kind of shaking, everything is clean. And that can happen, you know, once that's happened, all of the water's boiled because all of the water's at 200 degrees. So don't worry so much about time amounts. Just make sure that it's at a steady rolling boil before you take it off. Now let me get this fire started back up so it doesn't smoke me out. When it's smoking, oftentimes it just needs a little oxygen. Now for the Morse Kohansky pot, I can just lower this down. Get it right in there and try to move some coals around there. This Morse pot is a little bit too full, so it might spurt a little bit. That's hot. Fire's hot, shocker. Now, I can just move this onto the fire. So we've got the hanging Morse Kohansky pot, Morse pot, and then we've got this guy. We can either stick it right down inside of the coals here, or we can put it right there on that rock. Ooh, that's hot. And now we wait. So if I build this up a little higher, now, one thing that I wanted to show you, and I did this specifically, is how do you deal with the hot items, okay? The Burtonsville rig will deal with the hot items that have a handle, but how do you deal with a canteen like that? So if this was boiling, it's obviously not there yet because I just stuck it on there. And I had a canteen like, or a a bandana like this, I can just reach in there and grab from the sides that clean canteen and take it off. One thing to not do is do not touch it with a wet rag. What'll happen is it'll steam flash you. If you get it wet and you touch it, it's gonna flash steam and it's gonna burn your hands. So make sure that if you're gonna grab this, it's with the dry bandana. Now I'm gonna let this burn for a little bit and let it get good and hot and get some of the boil before I pull any of this thing off. Got to get some fire on the backside too. Another pro and another con with this, even though the clean canteen is large volume, half a gallon, it fits great on a VersaCloth. It's kind of a high-speed way to boil water. You don't have a lid for it while it's cooking, and every once in a while you get a little bit of ash in it. So a super positive for any pot with a lid is the fact that I can cook it in some pretty solid flame, and it's not going to get ash in the top. So let's let those cook.